Welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin B., your host and a child of an all-loving and perfectly loving and powerful God, and an addict living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time. Rico 12 is dedicated to exploring the common threads of addiction, sharing tools, and offering hope from those walking a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and locations to learn and support one another. Our speakers come from various fellowships and experiences, demonstrating the universal principles of recovery. This Rico 12 meeting is meeting number 319, and it is a special pop-up meeting. Excited to have Jed F here with us today. Thank you to those who are able to be here live on a very short notice. And Jed will be speaking on the topic of, does God hate me or does God love me? And I look forward to hearing his message here shortly. But first, for just a few quick announcements. Rico 12 offers a variety of recovery resources, including podcasts and social media communities. To explore more, visit rico12.com or click the links that I'll put in the chat and the show notes of the podcast for those resources. Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue this message. Thank you to all our Spearhead donors, past and present, especially Natty this week. Your support truly makes a difference. If you'd like to contribute, visit rico12.com/support or check the links in the show notes and the chat for one-time monthly donation options. Every bit of support, financial or through word of mouth, helps us share these messages of recovery. Now, each week we receive light and inspiration from our speakers. Their stories bring hope, meaning, worth, and growth to us as listeners. Now, I'm going to welcome today's guest speaker, Jed F., and I'm going to share just a little bit about him before I turn the floor over to him. Jed was sent to recovery by his loving God through his wife's addiction and is grateful about that. He learned that he's not perfect, will never be perfect, and that's okay. His main focus is emotional sobriety and his connection to his higher power. Take it away, Jed. The floor is yours.
Hey, Justin. I'm super excited to be here. This podcast has been with me since the day it started. I think I missed maybe two of the shares, maybe. And being on here as a guest is like, it's a dream that I never thought would happen, and it's come true. So I'm super thankful to be here. I was sent to recovery through my wife's addiction, and yet today I would like to share about my recovery because 2020, January 15th, 2020, I was sent to recovery by my wife revealing her addiction to me, and that day I spoke to my sponsor for the first time. He dedicated about 3 hours to me on the phone, which was incredible. And I'm super thankful to him because for the first time in my life, a few things happened. I wasn't sure God actually existed, and I had no meaning to life. And there was one thing he told me, that probably the only thing anybody could tell me to get me to recovery. He said, you have a problem and you have to fix it. And that was one of the least shocking things he said, because the other things he said was that he's thankful to his wife's addiction. And another thing he said is that he doesn't drink alcohol, not even a beer. And those things just sounded totally crazy to me back then. But one of my many character defects was that I somehow was convinced that I was the most perfect person, and I was perfect. I was kind, I was nice, I didn't hurt anyone, and that the fact that my self-esteem and my self-worth was as low as the floor is, that made no difference to me thinking that I was perfect. That doesn't make any sense to me in my brain right now, but somehow it made sense back then. I could be perfect and still have no self-worth and no self-esteem. And so the title of the show is, does God love me, God hate me? And really, honestly, and in that moment, I wasn't even sure God hates me, because I wasn't sure there was for the first time in my life, my whole life, I knew a God that I don't believe in anymore. And I then yeah, and that God was gone, because that God is supposed to treat me the way I'm treating him. And if I'm being kind and I'm being nice and I'm being good, then that's how that God should treat me. And this can happen to someone like me. It can, being deceived and not knowing, and basically I felt like my whole life was kind of rooted in, in not truth. Um, I did the best way to describe it is like a vine on a pole, and you take away the pole, and the vine just collapses. That's how I felt. Um, but what I know now, and what's amazing about recovery, is that not only does God exist, God loves me so much. He gave me a wonderful wife who's also an addict. Because if not for her and not for her addiction, um, I would have never had the opportunity to become the person I have the opportunity to become today. Um, getting to recovery taught me that. Actually, I'll just go back to one thing that my wife actually taught me recently, not long ago. She taught me the concept of right sized. And going back to the fact that when my wife's addiction was revealed to me, I lost the will to live. Talking about right sized, today I know that if I'm healthy, and as hurtful as it could be, and as um, and everything else involved in it, wanting to die is quite extreme. Um, and that was because of my character defects. And when sorry, I'm going spreading out a bit, but just to concentrate a second on that thing. So when I have a reaction that's not right size, I have to look deep into me and see, okay, what causes. So going back to that feeling back then of wanting to die, what caused that feeling to happen. And um, there's definitely a lot of codependence in there, a lot. My self-worth was developed on the fact that I make my wife happy. Um, I am her savior. And the second I realized I wasn't her savior, and the whole thing I had in my brain about, the way my life was, it wasn't true, then the reality I was living in collapsed. And sorry, I'll just take a second. And I had to, but again, that's my loving God putting me in that position, so I could start growing again and start maybe one day reaching my potential by through the 12 steps and through the program. Um, I'll go a bit, into the next 2 years. Just, if somebody's going through the same thing that I went through, give them hope. So the next 2 years of my life, 2020, 2022, my wife went to rehab, came back, relapsed, got some more recovery, relapsed, multiple times throughout those 2 years. And those were very, very, very difficult years that, um, looking back at those 2 years, I can't even remember so much about those 2 years. It's just like kind of a bit of still blocked in my memory, because they were very, very, very hard. And yet, if you tell me today that you could do make a miracle and make my wife not an addict, and take me back, to be, back then, and kind of erase that history, I would beg you not to. I would beg you to keep that, because I kind of debated with God throughout the time and said, okay, God, I kind of understand why you did this. I kind of understand, you do exist and you do love me, but you could have made it a bit easier. And I know today that's not true. I need all those struggles along the way to help me push through and work on myself and help me become a better person. Um, about 2 years after my wife relapsing several times, we decided to separate. We have gone to a mediator after about 7 months. We went to a mediator to kind of, split our stuff and, custody on our child and get divorced. And right before we were about to get divorced, my wife asked me if I would date anyone. And I said, actually not. I'm not really interested. And she said, okay, would you date me? And I said, okay. And for the next 6 months, we dated each other. And every time I came back from a date like that, like it was different. Sometimes I was like, okay, like let's file those divorce papers. And sometimes afterwards, I was like, I just want to call her up and say, hey, let's get back together. And I was very confused about it, and she knew that. And one of the things she said is, she said, we'll get back together when you could trust me again. And she worked really, really, really hard on her recovery. And the day came about 6 months later, where 6 or 7 months later, where she was doing, she was, sober already for a good 8 months or 9 months even, and maybe even more. And I felt I could trust her again. And we got back together, and we're back together since, and we have another child. And, you know, one of the things that my wife kept on telling me while we were still together through the first 2 years is, she said that, she blamed me that I don't really, like, kind of like that I married somebody that I imagined, and that wasn't really her. And today I tell her that she's right, because she's much better than what I imagined. Her abilities and her personality, everything about her, um, in recovery, is like a million times better than the woman I married. And she celebrated 3 years last week, and I'm just thankful to her for her giving me the chance to be married to her today, um, and also for her being an addict and giving me the chance to get into recovery in the first place. So, Justin, how long do I have? How much more time?
You could speak for another about 15 minutes if you'd like, or we can wrap up whenever you're ready. Just go with God on this.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's speak about a few things that came up for me in recovery, and things um, that I had to work on. So one is, let's go with self worth and self esteem. So as I said, so for me, myself, I didn't have any self worth. I wasn't worth anything. So if I woke up that morning and my wife was happy, or if I came back from work and my wife was happy, I was happy, because that means I'm doing my job, and that means I have some worth in this world. And if my wife wasn't happy, I would do everything I can to make her happy. And I got fired from a few jobs. I remember spending my last few dimes before my wife went to rehab, to get her a bottle of alcohol, because I felt like she needed that, and I really thought I was doing the right thing. Um, but it felt always my responsibility to um, make her happy, and more than that, if I don't make her happy, then I'm not worth anything. So I kind of had to. Um, one story that really, really reflects my character defect was, I was about 3 days after surgery, and it was a holiday coming up, and I wanted to get my wife jewelry. So I walked across town for about 3 hours to look for a piece of jewelry, and ended up having to be in bed for the next 2 weeks. Recovery from that surgery should have been a few days. And I ended up, that was probably one of the lowest points in my um, sickness. Um, and part of, the feelings that I had when discovery happened was, how can I be so kind, and how can, my wife hide this from me while I was being so kind? But now I know that I might have been, maybe the actions I was doing would be perceived as kind actions, but they were very far away from kind. They were very selfish, actually, because most of these things she wouldn't want. Just going back to that story about going and finding her a gift, we flew to visit her family a few days later, and instead of us having fun and enjoying, I was in bed. And if I would have asked her, would you like me to go, you know, 3 hours walking around and screwing up my body, and then wouldn't enjoy the vacation, she would have never wanted that. And yet for me, it seemed like the most kind thing to do. Um, she would have never wanted me to get fired from 2 or 3 jobs because, I woke up in the morning, the house is a mess, and I decided to be late for work, just as an example. So I could clean the whole house, wash all the dishes, and she'll wake up and she'll be happy. That's not something she would have wanted. And it's something that I wanted because I needed to feel worthy of love and worthy of myself. And I also know now that because of that, not I'm not blaming myself for her addiction, but I know that me behaving that way definitely made it harder for her. Definitely made her addiction worse because she was not just carrying her own self and having to deal with her own stuff. She was basically also carrying me because if my self-worth came from her, then even if she doesn't know that, and even if she didn't know that mentally, she was basically carrying my self-worth as well. And that couldn't have made it easier for her. So today in recovery, I learned to love myself. And that means, that means that I allow myself to feel self-worth because of my existence, because of who I am. And I'm allowed to be happy even if my wife is sad that day. I'm there for her and I have a lot of compassion. But if my wife is upset, my wife is sad, I could still be happy. I'm not going to walk around the house, laughing and smiling, but my inner self, I don't, her happiness is her happiness. And it's even a bit degrading for me to think that, um, her sadness is due to my actions, or her happiness is due to my actions. Because now if she's sad or she's upset, I know she has the ability to overcome that herself. If I think she doesn't and I have to do it for her, then I'm 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 basically taking away her, like in my brain, at least taking away like her thinking that she's not capable, she's not able to do that. Sorry for a bit of my lack of vocabulary. English is not my first language, but I'm trying to find the words. Um, so yeah, so I believe in her more and know that she could heal herself and she could take care of herself, and in that way also feel the same way towards me. Um, Today we both are two different people that love each other, live together, and help each other out when we ask for help. And today I could ask my wife if I'm not sure, that's for example, she'll send me to buy something and they don't have it. I won't go to spend another hour looking in another 10 shops to see if I could find it for her. I'll call her and I say, hey, they don't have it in the shop. What would you like me to do? Come home or spend another hour looking for it? How important is it to you? It's not something I needed to do in the past. So, that would be one thing. Um, Another thing is my relationship with God. I know I spoke about it before, but I'll just go back to it a bit. So my relationship with God was the same as my relationship with my wife. I make him happy, he makes me happy, and we're good to go. And when that pattern broke, and for the first time, I didn't believe he existed because the existence of God was dependent on the way I believed in him, and I believed that he would be good to me because I was good to him, and if and I'm thankful that that's not the case, because he was much better to me than I was ever to him. He he cared about me so much that he gave me a wife suffering from addiction. I'm not saying that she suffered from addiction for me, but I don't know how God works these stuff out. But the fact that she had an addiction, and God gave me the opportunity, I thought I was perfect. There was no reason for me to ever think that I should work on myself and try to become a better person. And only because she's an addict, and I fell to the floor, then and then I found recovery. I got that opportunity to think that maybe I should change. Maybe there's something wrong about me. Maybe I'm not as healthy as I think. So my relationship with God today is that He loves me no matter what, and everything that happens to me, what I perceive as bad or good, is always good. And for this shirt today, I can't tell you how many times I kind of practiced it. Um, Driving home from work, I got a 40-minute drive. I just like practice. And today, since I woke up, I'm blank, and I didn't even know. I was like, should I just cancel this whole thing? I was like, no, I can't cancel this. Like, I don't know when. I'm in America now, and not usually here, and the hours don't usually align, and here I am, and I don't know if I'll get this opportunity again. And Justin sent out the link already. Too late. I can't. And another thing that held me up. I mean, I know I'm just kind of scattering around, and I'm just letting my brain do that. But I hope it's okay. But another thing that helped me up is that, as I said, I listened to 99% of the recordings, and I never heard one person I was like, wow, like, what am I listening to? There's always something there, always something there to listen to, and always something that I got something from. So I was like, you know what? I can't be worse. I'm like, I can't be worse than over 300 people. Like 300 episodes. So something good will come out of it. So just going going back to my belief in God. So um, you know, why am I blank today? Why, my whole share that I was thinking of, why did all that kind of leave my brain? I don't know. And it's a bit uncomfortable for me. And and but that's God's plan. And I might never know why. And but what I could always do is say, you remember when January 15th, 2020, when you thought God doesn't exist anymore, because if he does, he probably hates you so much. And and when your sponsor told you that he's grateful for his wife's addiction, and you thought he was crazy, and now you could see how he's so amazing that he put that in your life. So anything bad that happens, I'll tell myself, so any bad thing that happens to you, just wait. Just wait, because you don't know what good is going to come out, because God doesn't do anything bad. God is complete good, and God loves me. And yeah, and sometimes it could be the bad thing that I perceive that's happening to me is really only to push me forward. And besides that, it might not be any good turnout. But even just that fact that I have to overcome a struggle and become a stronger and better person, that fact alone is good. Is coming from a loving God who's giving me another obstacle, another weight to lift, to become a better version of myself. I'll take a second to try to think of another thing comes to my head. If not, I guess we'll go to the questions and answers. Yeah, we'll go to the questions and answers.
Awesome. Jed, thank you so much. And I find in these instances, and I've had this happen several times in my own life, I'll prepare something and then I'll get there to share what I've prepared, and all of a sudden God takes it in a completely different direction. And I see the value in what's happened today. There's been some really good things shared. We've got a couple of questions from our live audience. I've written down a whole bunch here. And a reminder to our live audience, if you have a question for Jed, please type it in the chat. If you want to remain anonymous, direct message me, put a note, anonymous, please, and I won't read your first name. But we're going to start with someone in the chat here. This is Joanna. Joanna says, I got a question for Jed. What actions helped you the most on your wife's darkest days of relapse and addiction? How did you, where did you find help and support in those dark days? Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M. and me, Justin B., on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
So thank you for the question. So, first of all, calling my sponsor, and I can't express that enough, and I think I don't know if I think I once told him, like, if he ever billed me for those hours, like, I would have to work my whole life to pay him back. Because, and again, just going back to God and how he works things out, right? So I'm on the other side of the world usually, and the time difference between us and the United States is and my sponsor, I think, is about 8 hours, right? So most of the dark times and most of the relapses always I heard about or knew about at nighttime by me. And I was able to call him and talk to him, and he gave me all the time in the world. And, and I know the only way I could pay him back is give it to other people. And when people call me, I always try to give them all the time I can, because that's the only way I could pay him back. And yeah, so calling my sponsor and then calling people on program, calling other guys and people on program, that's what helped me up, because it was hard. I remember there's this guy, both of our wives kept on relapsing, and I used to call and be like, okay, I'm in the gutter now, like, what's up with you, and just talk. And I think if God forbid there was a relapse today, then I have a stronger belief in God, and maybe that would I have stronger tools in that direction. But back in the day, those first few years of recovery, it was just other people in program. It was other people that were going through the same experience and reaching out and saying, hey, I need help. And yeah.
Oh, that's great, and I love that. And you mentioned earlier in your talk, the first time you spoke to your sponsor on that date, he said several shocking things, but one of them was, "You have a problem, and you need to take care of that." Was that a splash of cold water on you, or was that something that that you were willing to accept? You know what? I've got a problem here. It's not just my wife's problem. I need to work on myself. How did you feel when that first phrase hit you?
Thank you for bringing me back to that, because like I'm smiling because I remember like that was a big part of like my fear, like when I was like thinking about it. So so I'm blanking again. The question the question was, when I have a problem. Okay, yeah. So again, one of my biggest character defects is that I thought I was perfect, and somebody telling me, and somebody, my sponsor is a respectful guy, and he telling me that he has a problem, and then telling me that I have a problem. Immediately, because of my character defect, I want to fix that. I'm not going to stay. And part of the bio that I've written is that I had to be perfect. So somebody telling me, and I respect them and believe them. Somebody telling me I'm not perfect, I hear many times in the rooms people telling me I'm here because I came here because I wanted to fix my spouse, and then I realized I have to fix myself. I would never have gone to fix my spouse. I didn't care about my spouse then. I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about my own life. But somehow somebody telling me that I'm not perfect, that triggered that biggest thing in me because I have to be perfect. And I went to the rooms to become perfect again. I realized I'll never be perfect. And that's perfect. And yeah, so yeah, hope I answered the question.
No, thank you for sharing that. And I think I really identify with that. I'm the addict in my relationship, and my wife is the anon. Um, but she entered the rooms of 12 step like 7, almost 8 years before I did. And it wasn't until she came to me and said, "Look, I've got a higher power that I can depend on way more than you." And my pride, my perfectionism was, "Hey, I'm keeping a roof over your head. I'm keeping food on your table. How dare you tell me that you can rely on this higher power more than you can rely on me?" And that was kind of the bottom line for me, kind of like when he said, "You got a mess that you need to clean up here." Your perfectionism said, "I'm going to clean it up." And that was kind of the same thing with me. Hey, if what I'm providing isn't good enough, I got to be better at this and figure this out. And that was my humbling moment. Thank you for helping me also remember that and communicate that. I have another question for you, Jed. That I loved the imagery you talked about. That you were a vine around a pole. The pole was God, and when that pole that you thought was God was removed, the vine collapsed and it had to be rebuilt. Talk to me about that process of thinking you had a God and realizing that the God that you had your whole life, or at least the understanding of that God your whole life, was so messed up that you had to rebuild it and it had to be rebuilt. Talk to us a little bit more about that process.
Hey, thank you. I just correct one thing that pole wasn't just God; it was my wife as well. That's how codependent I was. I was, and I don't. I'm not even like I'm not even ashamed about that because I look back and say, okay, yeah, I was as sick, and that's again, God gave me the opportunity to recover, but I was that sick that pole. And again, I think that's also what made it so hard for my wife as well. That pole was her as well, and it was God and my wife at the same time, like both in my life just collapsing. And it wasn't like I first didn't believe in God anymore. That's what first happened. I didn't believe there was a God at all. And like I don't know if I knew I wasn't like atheist. Like I didn't think, okay, God for sure doesn't exist. But I was like, I don't know if he does. It doesn't make sense because, again, just doesn't make sense that he exists. And then working through step 1, 2, and 3, and realizing that I'm powerless, and I think it's for addicts, step 1, talking about the powerlessness, for them it's like kind of one step away from like having a grip, and for an anon it's 2 steps away because not only I'm powerless over the addiction, I'm powerless over the person having the addiction, and really working those steps and together with seeing the change in my life and seeing that how God actually is working in my life. Today I cannot believe in God. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense otherwise. The A power that cares so much about me, that and then again, I told you I used to struggle with the fact, I was like, okay, God, you wanted to wake me up, you could have made that slap hurt a bit less. You didn't have to give me. But I look back today and I know that I had to get exactly that that slap across my face. That slap that just wakes you up, and that's what I needed. Anything less than that would just be purposeless pain that wouldn't help. Anything more than that maybe would have destroyed me. But that's perfect. And so I see God so much in my life, and I see God all the time, that I just can't believe He doesn't exist. And so it's kind of, it wasn't a 1 second thing. It's kind of something that developed in my brain after having doubts about His existence, and also through working those first 3 steps. So it's all together, that kind of made that image of God in my head today. But I just take the opportunity because I know like we're still like we still got time, and I just you remind me about something else that I wanted to share about, and that was the alcohol thing, because one of the things I said I thought my sponsor was crazy was I understand an alcoholic who doesn't want to have alcohol. That makes sense. But somebody's not an alcoholic who doesn't want to enjoy a beer with his friends. It makes zero sense to me. And today, working on emotional sobriety, and that is a big priority in my life today. And that's something I didn't really talk about in the share. Emotional sobriety means to me living in the present. Because what my brain loves to do is pain shopping. I mentioned that I listened to the recordings. My favorite recordings back in the day, um, not just any recording I would listen to, was I want to hear how bad that other person had. I want to hear those details in the story, and like those were the parts that interest me. My brain loves pain shopping, and my brain could go there any second because I have so much. I guess you call it trauma in my brain that I could just go there and just like dig in and just sit there and enjoy that pain, which makes zero sense, but makes a lot of sense because I know that I could be there and I know that I could get stuck there. And so working on emotional sobriety for me means to not go pain shopping, not go to that place in my brain and that's not living in the present. Because if I look at the present, my life is so great. It couldn't be even better. Like it could always be better, I guess. But it's perfect. It's there's nothing wrong with my life. I'm thankful for everything I have. My family's healthy, and I got what I need, and life is good. And so I haven't had a drink of alcohol for maybe over 3 years, probably more, about 4 years. I would smoke weed occasionally and drink alcohol, and none of that. And the reason is because I'm not going to work so hard all day to preserve that emotional sobriety, living in the present, and then ruin that with a bottle of beer. It's just not worth it. Because once I drink, it's much harder to control my thoughts and much harder to live in the present. Um, so yeah, those just the last crazy thing that my sponsor said that today looks perfectly makes a lot of sense to me, and I do myself.
Wow. Thank you for walking through that. I just loved that concept of pain shopping. And I want to sit there for just a minute. You said, I would listen to people's stories to hear their rock bottom, to hear the pain, to hear that so that I could enjoy it. But that takes you out of the present. What are some practices you use today to stay in the present, to stay in that emotional sobriety in the here and now? Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Rico 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
So yeah, so it's crazy. I never shared that before. It just came out. I never. It was kind of one of my hidden stuff in my head that like nobody else is ever supposed to know about, and now here it is. You know, yes, I enjoyed listening to other people's pain so that I could, also kind of like remind me of my own pain, and then I could kind of so a tool that I use today is focus is actually doing what I was saying. It's just focusing on the present and think, okay, what you're doing right now, Okay, I'll give you a story, and I don't know if it was ever shared here before, but it's an amazing story. Somebody once told me. So he said, I go to a shop, right? And I buy something for $10 and I pay for it. I take out my cash, I pay $10. And, I get my receipt. And instead of going out, I pull out my credit card and I say, hey, I want to pay for this again. And the person says, you already paid. And I said, no, I would like to pay with a credit card as well. So I pay again, you know, $10 with the credit card. And then I pull out my checkbook. And then I do a bank transfer, whatever it is, but I pay for it over and over again. Any pain I had in my life, I already paid for once. Thinking about it again and indulging in it, and it's just paying for the same product again and again and again. And when that person shared with me that story, and when I realized what I was doing, so I realized that I was just hurting myself for no reason, just paying a price I already paid. And so just like right now I'm in my car, and many times those thoughts do come in the car because I'm by myself and whatever. So let's say right now I'm in the car, so I think, okay, wow, I'm thankful God gave me a car. And where am I going? I'm on my way to work. God gave me a job. How amazing is that? And just like that, and just looking around, it's like, oh, I'm so grateful for where I live. Look what a great scenery or whatever it is. And being present right now, that's always the best cure for living in the past.
Yeah. Oh, and I loved that story that you shared about the paying for that pain over and over and over again. And I've recognized in my life that, yeah, the first time I have the pain, maybe it cost me $10. But the 30th time I remember that pain, I'm paying $25 for that same $10 pain because I'm exaggerating it. I'm growing it. I'm blowing it up in my own mind and I'm just paying for it over and over again. I love that analogy and what it did in my mind. Thank you for sharing that. Um, One thing that my sponsor fairly recently said to me, Jed, and I'd like to compare it to something you shared earlier. He said I was complaining about my kids, about my family, whatever, and I was saying something like, I'm just trying to be helpful. I just want them not to follow the same path that I followed in my life, and I want to help them not do that. And he paused and he goes, Justin, helpfulness can often be the sunny side of manipulation, the sunny side of control. And you shared something that about kindness and selfishness, how kindness can become selfishness in that process. So talk to us just a little bit more about how kindness becomes selfishness.
Okay, I'll just go back to what you said. And it's just an amazing thing that came into my brain. And I remember the first days in recovery, my sponsor telling me, how cool it is that, because he's a bit older than me, and he's like, how cool it is that you're so young and you have your whole life, to live in recovery. And I was like, are you crazy? I wish I was much older so I could only have to be in this. I only have to be in this for a few years and then I die. Like, I don't want to do this my whole life. And you talking about your kids, and it's like, yeah. So living in recovery with my kids, and implementing all those tools, it's so hard. It's so hard with kids not to try to manipulate them because it's so easy. It's like the easiest people to manipulate, and I'm so good at manipulating. And yeah, and it's always like a struggle. Like, I do want to teach my kid the right thing. I do want them to do the right thing, and I also do not want to manipulate them. And um yeah, so implementing those tools in recovery towards my kids is probably the best one of the amazing gifts that God gave me in the program, and being able to implement that on my kids. And um you asked, where's the line? Was that the question? Sorry, because I know I went way.
Yeah, I mean, where's the line, or how do you try and stay in the kindness rather than jump into the selfishness? How do I try and stay in the helpfulness rather than jump into the manipulation?
So I probably help me, if you have any like specific like example, maybe it'll help me in my brain. But just for example, if my daughter's doing a puzzle or just something that's not, just say that for example, right? Then and I see the piece and I want to help her. So before recovery, I would just take the piece and be like, hey, here, you can put this here, you can put this there. And in recovery, I would say, hey, would you like my help? I see you doing a puzzle. Would would you like, maybe she does, maybe she'll feel like she's doing it together with me and she'll actually be happy, and maybe she doesn't want my help. So asking her if she wants my help, that's huge. And that I only learned that recently, um, like through recovery. And it's like that with my wife, with my colleagues, and with everyone, anybody who are just, my sponsor once made me write an O on my hand. Um, I forgot what it stands for. I'm sorry, but the reason he wanted me to write that is to remember never to give advice to people if they didn't ask me. So every time I pass by my colleague or my daughter or my wife or anybody, a family member, and I see that I have great advice for them, I'd ask them, "Hey, I have some experience in this. Would you like some advice?" And only if they want my advice, if they want my experience, then I would give it. Um, but going back to not manipulating my daughter, I wish I had a secret, recipe, say, hey, follow this path and you'll never. But I myself don't know, and I myself question myself every time. And what's amazing about recovery is that you could question yourself. You don't have to feel guilty and shameful. I could question myself and say, "Oh, I see. Maybe I've done this wrong," and just put it in my brain for next time. And next time that happens, I'll act differently.
Thank you for sharing that, Jed. And I have utilized for better or for sometimes better, sometimes worse that question, hey, would you like my help there? What's hard for me is when they say no, because then I want to, but I can really help out here, and and it's such a hard thing for me to step back and not step over into the manipulation and just be okay. I'm going to be helpful as long as you want, but if you don't want, I'll back away. And that's such a powerful concept that in the moment for me does not bring peace in the moment, but as I step back and watch it from a little bit later, I have peace and acceptance with the outcome of it. And I really appreciate you walking through that. Another question I have for you is, you talked about how your sponsor said the greatest asset in my life is that my wife is an addict and that I get to live in recovery. And then later you said pretty much the same thing. If God came to me and said, "Hey, I can take all this stuff away from you," you would say, "No, please don't." Talk to us a little bit about that transition from I want this to be over and not ever have to deal with it again to, man, this has really helped me a ton to become who I am today and who I will become in my life. Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 Spearhead.
Hey, so I think the answer is basically that how I feel, how my life has turned out to be, and and maybe I hope this answers. But I'll go back to your story. Like when I was first in recovery, I was working in this job, and it kind of paid the bills, and it was a job that I found, and I was just doing it. And one day I got a ride from a salesperson in that company, and and I asked them, and they also get a car from the company and also got paid more than me. And I asked that person, I said, "Hey, how did you get this? What did you study to get this job?" And he said, "Nothing. I just saw they were looking for a salesperson. And I applied for this job." And it hit me how, when I was looking for a job, I looked for a certain type of job. And when this person was looking for a job, he was looking for a different type of job. And I think that was my first one of my when I was taking my first steps in recovery. And so today I know how to I value myself, and today um, I I see myself in a different light, and I live My head is a different world. It's not a head that afflicts pain on myself. It's a much more, it's a freer head. It's a happier head. My relationship with God is so amazing, and my relationship with my wife and my family. So to look back and not be thankful for it would be a bit crazy. Um, because knowing that that's what brought me to where I am today, the life that I'm so thankful to have and live. And knowing that without that, that wouldn't happen. Um, I could just coming to my head now. Imagine like I'm just driving like a car that's like breaking down, and I get into some kind of accident, and for some reason, because of that accident, I get this beautiful fancy car, right? I'd forever be thankful I got into that accident and then got this beautiful car, because I got this beautiful car. So, um, yeah, I think it's the same thing. It's like looking back and knowing that if not for X, Y wouldn't happen. Then obviously I don't want anybody to take X away from me, because that Y is so amazing, and the price I paid is a bargain.
Love that. And that's another great analogy. I really like the analogies you're putting out here, Jed. Good stuff. Before we wrap up, do you have any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
No, just I'm super thankful to you, Justin, for everything you do, and this the Rico 12 thing you put up, and it's been a huge part of my recovery. We spoke a lot about my recovery and what things were helpful, and Rico 12 was there every week, without fail. Was there for me, and a few pop-ups as well. So that was always cool as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Jed, and I'm honored and humbled that this service is helpful. That God is using me in a way that I never ever imagined would be something that I would be doing. So really cool. Thank you so much for an amazing Rico 12 speaker meeting, Jed. If anybody out there, if you have other questions or you'd like to continue the conversation, join our WhatsApp community. You can email me at rico12pod@gmail.com to be added. Jed, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, are you okay if if they email me and I connect them with you?
Please do.
Okay, perfect. So if you'd like to get in contact with Jed, email me again at rico12pod@gmail.com, and I'll get you connected with Jed. If you haven't done so yet, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you listen to either one of those, it's a powerful way to work Step 12 and share recovery with others. In a couple of days, just in 2 days from now on Friday, we'll be hearing from Stan, who will be discussing, his topic is meetings, step work, and service. To stay updated on WhatsApp or our email list, you can join in there. And if you're not yet subscribed, email me once again at rico12pod@gmail.com. I'll get you on the email list. Now, let's wrap up with a serenity prayer that Jed will say for us.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Jed. Remember, everybody, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back, and when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
I've seen stars fall from above. I've fallen in and out of love. I've been high and I've been low. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. I've seen a boy become a man. He got lost without a plan. He's so far away from home. Now I know I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me. Your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. this on my own. I'm looking for the words to say. You make the world a better place, and I can call that place my home. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. Your arms surrounding me, your touch is grounding me. No longer searching for purpose all alone. 'Cause now I know that I just can't do this on my own. So let me see just what you need to set you free, so we can be. I saw stars fall from above. I fell in and out of love. I got high and I fell low. But now I know that I just can't do this on my own. No, I just can't do this on my own. I just can't do this on my own.